So today what we're going to talk about, first of all, I would like to just kind of let everybody know. So Olivia, who you just saw speak, incredible, amazing woman. She and I started the InnerSource journey together at Watson NLP. I was the agile transformation coach for that organization and helped establish the first InnerSource Program Office at IBM with Jenna, who I brought on board to help me with certain aspects of the platform and various different things we needed to do. And we learned very quickly that we didn't have everything that we needed. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. One of the things I wanted to mention today too is that it's going to be, first of all, I'm really looking forward to this program. I've been looking at this agenda over and over and over again, and I just really can't wait until everybody else talks and I shut up. But we're going to see a lot of ideas around tooling. We're going to see a lot of technology discussions. But what's really going to kind of thread through every single one, from based on every single one of the abstracts I've read, is people. People have to be in the mix. Human beings and humanity is the key to making AI work for us and work for everybody. And so I think it's really, really important that we remind leaders when they're making decisions about efficiency and effectiveness, that it can't just be about efficiency. It can't just be about productivity. It has to be about how we're going to advocate for ourselves and one another in this new world of AI, because things are moving really, really fast and it's hard to keep up. So I will get off my soapbox now. Okay, so one of my friends who was also an agile coach who helped us start this journey once upon a time with Watson NLP, a guy by the name of George Champlin-Scharf was our agile coach. And he used to always say this every single time we would make a comment: we are people, not robots, right? So every time we started thinking that it's all about tooling, it's all about technology, it's all about this is the reminder that he would give us, and it's stuck with me since forever. What we learned when we were getting ready to implement the InnerSource program at IBM was, we had a lot of things that we needed to be able to stand that up, but we didn't have everything that we needed. My name's Micaela. For those of you that don't know, I actually used to work at IBM. I'm now currently at EY. And so I am here today to talk about my experience setting up the InnerSource Program Office, what I've learned and what I've carried with me in my new role. Jenna?
My name is Jenna Ritten. I'm Chief Developer Advocate and Architect for IBM InnerSource within IBM Research. And I'm currently leading our IBM InnerSource ecosystem, which we'll get to talk about in a little bit.
Absolutely. All right. So one of the things that we realized is that we had a lot of fragmented innovation happening. So there was, I would refer to it, there was InnerSource as such. There was collaboration happening, but it was very siloed. It was very stuck in a situation where things were not being collaborative. There was no handshake across. There was no system or infrastructure or scaffolding to support those handshakes. And so in that fragmentation, we ended up lots of duplication of effort. One of the things when we first started the process, and Olivia, correct me if I'm wrong, when we started with Watson NLP, how many different versions of NLP stacks did we have at IBM? 30, 20 plus? Yeah. We have a chart that we've often used over and over to tell that story. But ultimately, what that means is that you're spending time, money, effort on 20 different permutations of the same thing. And that's a problem. We have to fix that problem. And we think that InnerSource is the way to do that. And so we wanted to stop doing duplication of efforts. We wanted to increase coordination, but you have to have the infrastructure and the scaffolding to help people do the coordination, the contributions, the reuse, help them understand. And so you had to help upskill them, and you needed a change management process, which I know for some people is kind of a dirty term, but it's really not. You actually need to be able to help people along the way of this journey. When things are changing, change is hard. New things are difficult. It's one of those challenges that you run into. And so we had some questions, like we got started. We're like, how do you scale this thing called InnerSource? How do you get people to collaborate together? How do you get them to talk to each other? What are the problems in which we need to be able to do to productize something? How do you get research to talk to the development team? How do you get the development team to talk to marketing? These are all the problems that we kept running into. If we were going to scale InnerSource, we needed to build a bridge from the beginning to the end. We needed to start from the idea, shorten the time frame that it took to be able to get to the end destination, which is something that's going to be useful and put in people's hands instead of the AI slop that we often see. It's a tool just like anything else. You don't build a house with one hammer. You build a house with multiple different tools and lots of people getting together to build a house. I think that's really important to remember. So we had a little bit of an aha moment as we were trying to stand up all of these things and getting really frustrated with being able to talk to leaders and leadership and getting them to understand what it was that we needed to do to make the investment in time and effort. And we actually have one of our former leaders who is here, and she's going to get mad at me for calling her out probably. But you need leaders like Wendy to support you every single day and help provide the necessary air cover in order for you to be able to do the work that you need to do to create that scaffolding, to create that bridge and bridge that gap between the beginning and the end. So Jenna, would you like to pick up from here?
Sure.
All right.
So I'll start with a comment on the human in the loop. So firstly, I really don't like that term. I feel like it takes the ownership and autonomy away from all of you. And the reality is we are leading. AI is a tool. If you are not leading and you are not making the decisions, who do you think is going to be making these decisions for you, right? It's end up with a bunch of gobbledygook. You are leading with the AI tools that you are using from end to end. In terms of starting with where we have been at with our internal teams now, I'm going to work backwards. Where we are now with our IBM InnerSource ecosystem internally is, I think our current team under Wendy, we report to Rashir Puri, the Chief Scientist of Research. I think our team is a really great example of what InnerSource in practice end-to-end looks like. So our InnerSource platform by default from the beginning was InnerSource. I said, if we're going to do this, we're going to InnerSource all the things. Micaela would do sessions and agile transformation workshops, and we would talk about agile, all the things. So we're going to have to InnerSource all the things, no matter how painful it is. So if a feature or a tool exists, we are not going to duplicate the functionality. We are going to work with that team, regardless of how painful it is, to get them open and find a mutually beneficial partnership where we can implement integrations between our platforms to support each other. So today on our current team under Wendy, we're the Catalyst team. We have the InnerSource team, we have the corporate technical recognition team, and we have the open innovation community team. We have 3 platforms. Our developers are constantly contributing to each other's platform. It's not even an extra add-on at this point. It's a part of your sprint. If your sprint gets busy, you're picking up issues for your specific platform when things are low. We have things moving so seamlessly now. It's, these things on CTR are a priority, so we're going to pick up these things. These things on OIC are a priority, we're going to pick up these things. So we have things moving now that we have a really nice flow. So we're keeping developers busy. Everyone has plenty of things to do, but we're working more efficiently. And we have contributors that we work with across the company, across multiple platforms now that really help us speed up our development life cycle. So moving backwards a little bit, when we first started thinking about InnerSource, was it the GTO program or Project Max? So a continuation of an initial InnerSource effort, the GTO project. We had evolved it to this initiative called Project Max. We're working very closely with some of our IBM design engineering leaders, and I was really spending a lot of time with them. And they had created this notion of global and local systems, and in terms of assets and resources and how they were cataloging content and how they were making things more accessible and searchable, so they could keep them up to date, because things get versioned out of date very quickly. So something just really clicked coming from infrastructure and platform engineering and then DevRel background while I've been at IBM. And I was like, how do we communicate to not just leadership, but to the community what it is we're trying to build? And how do we build it into something that you can visually see and understand? So I took their global and local systems and I turned it into a visual representation of our InnerSource ecosystem. And I was really pushing this ecosystem, especially in our developer relations programs and organizations. And I was like, this is the way to go. We really need to focus on ecosystems. So the three pillars of our ecosystem that are the local, the first is our InnerSource Program Office, or our ISPO. This is where we work with our stakeholders who are teams across the company, like our Z InnerSource teams and our CIO InnerSource teams and client engineering, and learning what their pain points are, what they need support with, how can we help them work more efficiently and get others across the company adopting and reusing their assets and contributing back, closing the loop. Anyone in DevRel, you need to close the loop at the end, otherwise we're just putting things out with no return. So our second pillar is platform. Platform is everything. Everything internal is Slack. If you are privileged enough to have Stack Overflow internally, everything is searches, pages, very difficult to navigate. So our internal platform, the vision was, well, we're going to have the inner Google, the inner search for the whole company. If you're a developer, you should, or anyone technical or non-technical, you should have one place to go to find all the assets you need to get started and get enabled. And you should be looking there first to see if it exists before you go build a new thing, right? So that was the vision, that was the goal. So that's what we're working on through our platform. So today we have our external platforms, IBM.com and developer.ibm.com, as well as our internal InnerSource assets, all on our platform. We're working on getting all of our client engineering assets on there from our different systems. We have provisioning patterns and assets. We're working on getting those in there, and our assets from our open innovation community that are initiatives that people work on throughout the year, making sure that all of those things are discoverable and all that work is not going into a black box that can't continue to be kept up to date and reused. And our third pillar is community. So with a small team, we can't do all the things. We have to pick and choose and we have to prioritize. So we have actually localized with that global and local model, localized our support. So we have InnerSource leaders in different organizations that are helping create the better practices and guidelines for their organizations. They understand their community, they understand their technology, they understand their platform. So they're helping to establish those practices for their organization and feed back into InnerSource so that we have standards across the board. They're our users, so our platform works for everyone. So that's our ecosystem: ISPO, platform, and community. And as Phil would say, like he was talking about with driving transformations, a successful transformation is cultural, and it requires three things: people, places, and practices. So that's what we have in our ecosystem, so that we're supporting people, places, and practices.
So just really, really quickly
ahead.
too, I just wanted to sort of add, so two things. One, when we talk about the community, what we're really talking about, some terms you might be hear thrown out every once in a while, and something that we're really committed to using in my new role at EY is the notion of federation. And essentially what that means is that ecosystem, that is that external group of people that are coming together to collaborate. And so we worked on creating champions and advocates within those different sort of local ecosystems to make sure that they understood, what are we talking about when we say InnerSource? What are we talking about when we say collaboration? One of the other things that we discovered was that, projects, people don't know how to do these things just on their own. We needed to teach them how to do them. And we realized that they also needed to understand, and we needed a standardized way to set up projects that were InnerSource ready. In other words, you could contribute to it and you can consume it. right? And that needed to be easy for everybody. And everything that we built, we thought about the experience for every single person that was part of that ecosystem. We tried really, really hard to make sure that we put ourselves in their shoes so that we could understand what their problems were and reduce the friction as much as possible. And oops, whoa. And this was what we got.
Yes. So in 2019, the start of everything, there were about 200 members participating. The main InnerSource project was NLP. There weren't any knowledge sharing events. Things were contained at inception and growing. There were about 75 contributors at the time. And so just starting to get open collaboration was about 15%. I joined in 2021 and we spent end of 2020, 2021. So throughout 2021, we actually spent a lot of time with the NLP team, just understanding their processes, understanding what their pain points were, working with their contributors. The contributors were helping with the technical debt a lot, but it was also creating extra time to get new contributors onboarded. It was taking extra time to review extra pull requests. So with that, we started building enablement and training. We now have training and badges for InnerSource explorers for our InnerSource foundations. We have badges and training for InnerSource contributors, trusted committers, and our project starters. We work very closely with InnerSource Commons. One of the things that I want to make sure that we continue to not do is duplicate training. InnerSource Commons is the hub where we all across the industry share our expertise. So that is a required training in addition to our internal training for our InnerSource practitioners. But with that, we've been able to help fill in the gaps. So part of what we do throughout the year are contributor cohorts, where not only do we go over all of the training, but we provide a sandbox for people to go in and practice assigning themselves issues, creating pull requests. A lot of these things seem very simple, but there are parts of your company who have never been in GitHub. One of our goals is to make sure that InnerSource is for everyone. So whether you're technical or not, the platform, and this goes back to previous platform days, your platform should be so intuitive that it doesn't require training. Now, that's a lofty goal. It takes a lot of work, but what it actually takes is feedback from your users, especially your non-technical users, to give you feedback so that you can make sure that anyone can use your platform and it's not a deterrent for participation in your community. So since then, in 2022, we were able to increase to 3,500 members. We had roughly 250 to 300 projects in the platform. We had about 85 events between our localized within organization workshops, as well as our enablement events online and cohorts that we were running, office hours, and around 500 contributors. Coming into 2025 now, we've surpassed. So between our we call open innovation communities. So within our open innovation community, InnerSource, and everyone internally that's participating in InnerSource and open source practices, we're well over 10,000 members now. We have well over 1,000 projects in our portal. We also support patterns and content. If you are a company with an external developer platform, go and ask your research and engineering teams if they know it exists and if they've ever used it. It's going to be hit or miss. There is great content there that can enable people on any of your tools instead of suffering in silence internally. So one of the things that we are also working on enabling is the closing the loop. So one of the things that we're working on now is making sure that as we're learning all of these new technologies, and this is what keeps me up at night, every night, as we are learning all of these new things, we are not knowledge sharing anywhere. Where is it going? Where is it going? Other than a document on your local, something you're spinning up some notes you're putting somewhere. We're not sharing. So everyone that's trying a new tool is basically trying it for the first time. So I'm working on with our platform team enabling closing the loop so that people can contribute back the knowledge sharing. They can contribute back patterns. They can contribute back templates. They can contribute back content. And then through our community, we can create a platform and a space for them to come and share their learnings so that we can enable faster. We need to keep up building on the momentum. No one person is ever going to know all the things, but collectively we've been able to scale a lot, partly through our cohorts and partly through our initiatives like our contributor cohort. And this was our third year of Hacktoberfest, which we scaled, and now we have in-person on-site events as well as virtual, which we've scaled to the US, Mexico, and Brazil this year. Next year, we'll shoot for DACH in India and a few other places.
I just wanted to sort of give some context too. If you're not familiar with the term Hacktoberfest, what that is that is an annual event that is supported by open source community, which we actually established an InnerSource version of the same thing to mirror what was happening externally. And so the idea here is that we wanted to have this notion of, as Jenna said earlier, InnerSource all the things. Like, we really do want to make sure that we have a reuse mindset, that we're thinking about things from that, and we're approaching everything with, how do I get this knowledge to somebody else? How do I learn from somebody else? And how do I share that in some way, shape, or form that's going to allow them to be able to learn, so that we can then build over time what we're doing. And so Hacktoberfest was one of the events, and there's multiple things that take place within that Hacktoberfest month. And it always is in October, in case you couldn't tell by the name.
Yes, October every year. September is Preptember. So that's where we get our cohorts going and make sure people feel ready and enabled and not intimidated to participate. And shout out to DigitalOcean for over a decade of keeping Hacktoberfest going and successful. Did you want to start with this one?
Yeah. So I'm going to just kind of quickly go over this, just to kind of give you an idea of the way in which we're thinking about these things. And so we had sort of, realized that we needed a maturity model or a life cycle view of how these InnerSource projects go through the platform and go through that actual development cycle. And so this was sort of the idea that we came up with, realizing that we needed to facilitate that. And so all of the things that were built, all of the enablement that was done, all of the knowledge assets and artifacts that were available, and the training that was done, were based on this sort of life cycle and structure of the maturity of each of the individual InnerSource projects. And so one of the things that, as you're going to hear over and over and over again today, culture is going to be at the center of any InnerSource implementation, any AI implementation that you have. You really want to think about the culture. How are people behaving? How are they interacting with each other? And how much friction do you have in the system that is preventing that collaboration from happening in the first place? Your role as InnerSource practitioners is to help facilitate that collaboration process, and to think about how you're going to do that for other people, and how are you going to build that scaffolding and build that bridge the way that we did, in order to help create that, a much more effective way of collaborating. As you know, the journey has not ended yet. We just started this. I know it seems like it's been a long time, 2019 to now, it seems like it's a really long time ago, but it really is just the beginning of this journey. And I think it's really important to understand that, each year we'll hit new milestones, we'll learn new things, but what is most important is to make sure that people are in the mix of those conversations, and are at the center of the knowledge sharing and decision-making points that we need to make as we go.
One last thing I wanted to add is,
go ahead.
For anyone that is trying to build an ISPO or an OSPO, for anyone that is currently leading one or trying to work any challenges, your ecosystem is a living, breathing thing. So if any one pillar of your ecosystem is weak or crumbling or does not have the support it needs, it's going to start to break down and bottleneck in other areas. So your InnerSource Program Office needs a platform to support and enablement. You need a community to use your platform and participate and contribute back. You also need your program office to lead initiatives and work with your stakeholders across the company in order for both of those things to be successful. So it's really important, however you can structure things and support, having more modular and localized parts of your company able to support those things more. InnerSource, they're going to be speaking today. I'm excited for them to talk to you about their learnings, but we've learned a lot partnering with them and contributing with them, and we've been able to help enable other teams as well through working with them, with our IBM Quantum team, CIO, and others. So those are your partners. They should be part of your regular check-ins throughout the year. They should be part of your agile cadences. They should be helping you support office hours, doing all the things. They're your teammates. They're your teammates across the company, even if it's just you, one person as a one-person ISPO.
All right, so our breakthrough wasn't a technical breakthrough. Solving a problem through tooling, through technologies is kind of the easy and sort of the easy first step. And so when we talk about platform, we're not talking just about the tools. We're not talking about just the technology. We're talking about the whole ecosystem that's involved in bringing those pieces together. And there is always a person in the middle of that equation. There's always a person at the centerpiece of these conversations and of these discussions. So the user experience, the human experience is actually the most important experience. So that's really kind of it for now. I want to make sure we had time for, so that's what my timer was,
Yep.
to make sure that we didn't talk too much, because Jenna and I can kind of get going if you
Yep.
hadn't noticed. You know, again, we're not robots. None of us are interchangeable cogs in a wheel. We can't be replaced. We have to be advocate for ourselves, for one another when it comes to a lot of these kinds of technological innovations and changes that are taking place. So,
So the real breakthrough was not technical. It was human.